Yeah, just for...
I don't want us to waste time.
Chair, we are not waste time.
Let me explain. Let me explain. Produce that letter for the benefit of those who want to see it. But the CS is here, who took an oath and is reading the document. So because he's here, just direct us where you're reading the document, or which document, then as we wait for the cover letter, because that is also the tradition. There's always a cover letter plus all the file. And there are files in front of us that the CS has indicated it is his response. So I believe you can proceed. Tell us where you're reading. So that
there's a reason I was raising this matter, because ownership of documents is very important. In my file again, there is a document at the top that is a table of contents. You can see, I have it before me. This table of contents actually is on the first page.
Yes.
Yeah. So to proceed procedurally, you should have allowed the CS to go through the documents he has brought. So that when we go to the narration, he tells us this is the document I'm referring to is here. And in this table of contents, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Chair, I don't see any reference to the document the CS was speaking. And that is why I was suspicious. Maybe somebody has sneaked in a document that is not from government office. But if he confirms it is the one, and I will personally insist that my copy be signed. Because there is a reason why these documents are brought here.
Thank you. Chair, I think in addition is that the procedure of Parliament is very simple. Through you, Chair, any document that is brought to Parliament must be signed. You remember the case of your Kiambu County. The former governor came before the Senate Public Accounts Committee, and when he read something about allocation to the State House, later he accused the committee of sneaking in documents. So that is why we insist on ownership and signature, so that it allows, it's the president, and you know, Chair, these things are unanswered. Somebody will move to another forum and might want to extract the answered, and at that time we might be vulnerable because the document is unsigned, the clerk is not there. This could look like clerical job, the CS, but this is very critical to the proceedings.
Yeah, I think this is an internal matter we need to discuss ourselves. So let's proceed, Chair.
But CS, direct us to the document you're referring to, and then the table of contents. And that's why I said earlier that all the documents that provided are well labeled. We can be able to follow up. So, Bwana CS, as we wait for that letter, and you're here, you're on Hansard, so we will listen to every word that you say. So I don't see any problem with that. Direct the committee where that document is.
So, Chair, in short, we submitted what you would call 4 documents. The first one is the letter addressed to you. Then number 2 is the table of contents. Then the third document should be my submission, written submission, which Chair could sign the Chair's copy, and then it is given to other members. And then finally, the annexures. So those are the documents that we are dealing with this afternoon.
Okay, I've received a signed copy by the CS, which is actually the one I was referring to, the 3rd page from the first document on your files. So I don't know, from what you were showing, it has a different font, and I don't know where you got that document.
Chair, you indicated you are not, you don't have the concern I have. So I will insist on having the copy that is signed, so that where we stand in the
It's okay.
Yes, thank you.
That's all right. Okay, gracias.
So, Chairman, can I proceed? Can I proceed? Yeah, I'll start again. Okay. Honorable Chairman, I'm pleased to respond to the questions raised by the committee regarding the proposed development and expansion of the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport by a letter which is referenced as indicated and dated 18th of September 2024. Allow me to pass the body of the PPP committee members who are to join me for the meeting, including the chairman of the PPP committee, who is my PS at the National Treasury. As my introductory remarks, allow me to remind us all that as a nation, we were keen to create room for participation of the private sector in the financing, construction, development, operation, or maintenance of infrastructure or development projects through public-private partnerships, hence the enactment of Public-Private Partnerships Act 2021. And Mr. Chairman, you'll allow me just to interject there that this is actually off-balance sheet way of financing our projects. We are all aware of the constraints that we have in our exchequer, the pressures. So under the PPP Act, various procurement methods for a PPP project are outlined. And these include 1, direct procurement, 2, privately initiated proposals, 3, competitive bidding, and finally, restricted bidding. It is therefore within the law to engage the private sector in public development undertaking, and Chairman, as I respond to your communication, I will outline the lawful method applied in the Adani instance. At this moment, in the course of my brief introductory remarks, Chairman and members, I wish to call to note that under the said law was the creation of the Public-Private Partnerships Committee and the Directorate, whose import in ensuring that the law is upheld where any procurement process of the 4 outlined in the Act is ongoing is key. These key roles have been aptly applied as legally required, as will be shown as I now proceed to respond to the itemized questions as set out in your letter to me referenced above. Number 1, Chairman, you asked me to outline the PIP process, that is privately initiated proposals process under the Public-Private Partnership Act with specific focus on the PIP by Adani Airport Holdings Limited. Sections 40 to 44 of the PPP Act provides for procurement of the PPPs using the privately initiated proposal method, which is the method that has been applied by Adani. The Act set out steps that apply in the event this method of procurement is used. So now the process of privately initiated proposal. I get now to the process. Step number 1. Step number 1 is the submission of PIP by private party and the consideration of the PIP by contracting authority. This is the step that was taken by Adani via their submission to the Kenya Airports Authority. A submission is complete as per the law where the requirements that the private party is required to demonstrate under Section 40, subsection 2 of the PPP Act are met. And these are, A, that this project is aligned with the national infrastructure priorities and meets a demonstrated societal need. B, the project provides value for money, and this means that the undertaking of a public function of the contracting authority by a private party under the PPP results is a net benefit accruing to that contracting authority as defined in terms of cost, price, quality, timelines, or risk transfer. C, the project proposal provides sufficient information for the contracting authority, which in this case was Kenya Airports Authority, to assess fiscal affordability of and the potential contingent liability implications of the proposal for the project. The proposal should provide full disclosure excuse me, on all relevant project information for accountability to stakeholders. D, the project can be delivered at a fair market price. E, that the project supports the efficient transfer of risk from the public sector. And F, that for transparency and accountability, the proposal contains the following information set out under Section 40, subsection 3 of the Act, and in this case, the PPP Act. 1, a detailed description of the proposed project that must include reference designs, sketches, and alignment maps. 2, detailed project needs analysis, including a description of the benefits to society and alignment with the government's infrastructure plan. 3, a description of the environmental and social features of the proposed project. 4, a detailed technical description of the project, including a construction schedule and requirements on enabler services. 5, a detailed description of the financial viability of the project. 6, a preliminary operating plan for the proposed project. And 7, a description of the key project risks and risk allocation under the project. Number 8 is a disclosure on any government support measures the proposed project may require. Number 9, a description of non-monetary government support measures that the project may require. And finally, number 10 is a justification why the project is not suitable for open competitive procurement. Now, step number 2, Mr. Chairman, is submission of PIP proposal to the PPP Directorate for assessment and subsequent approval by the committee. Notwithstanding Section 40, subsection 5 of the Act, which grants discretion to the Cabinet Secretary for Finance, in this case National Treasury and Economic Planning, to prescribe when PIP submissions may be made. Section 40, subsection 6 of the Act requires a private party at the time of submitting the PIP proposal to the contracting authority to pay into the Project Facilitation Fund a non-refundable review fee calculated at the rate of 0.5% of the estimated project cost, or USD 50,000, whichever is lower. Chairman, in line with these provisions of the law, Adani Airport Holdings Limited submitted a privately initiated proposal to Kenya Airports Authority in line with Section 40, subsection 1 of the PP Act 2021. The same was considered by the Kenya Airports Authority, which is the contracting authority in this matter, in line with Section 40, subsection 2 and subsection 3 of the Act. Of emphasis, Mr. Chairman and members, is that consistent with the legal requirements, there followed submission of the PIP proposal to the Directorate for assessment and approval by the committee. I think that should be added. I didn't put it in my written submission, but you should add that approval is actually given by the committee and not by the Directorate. 1, the State Department for Transport, Mr. Chairman, submitted to the National Treasury via letter as reference in my submission, and which is dated 1st March 2024, the privately initiated proposal for assessment and approval in line with Section 40, subsection 4 of the Act. And 2, that Adani Airport Holdings Limited paid 50,000 USD appraisal fee as set in the law. Attached here with is a letter forwarding the PIP and PIP itself, and that is annexure A and B, respectively. So you have there a letter from the State Department, which has come from KAA through the State Department to the Treasury or to the Directorate, and the documents, the PIP documents. Step number 3, Mr. Speaker, then will kick in when the PIP is with both the contracting authority and the Directorate. This is conducting due diligence on the private party. Due diligence on the private party under Section 41 of the of the Act is conducted by the Directorate, Mr. Chairman, and the contracting authority to confirm that the private party A is not debarred by any country or any international organization from participating in PPPs or similar arrangements. B is not corrupt. C is not insolvent. D is tax compliant in all jurisdictions in which it has local presence and in its home country, and that it is not in default on payment of social security and employment benefits or contributions in its jurisdictions of operation and registration. And finally, has not, and its directors or officers have not been convicted of any criminal offense. So this is a fairly high level due diligence conducted mostly through the desktop computer. Step number 4. The due diligence paves way to the evaluation of the PIP. Mr. Chairman, evaluation of the PIP is carried out by the contracting authority and the directorate jointly after development of an evaluation criteria by the directorate in consultation with contracting authority. The evaluation is carried out within 90 days from the date the proposal is submitted to the directorate by the contracting authority, and the directorate is required to develop an assessment report. So the evaluation criteria by law shall include public interest criteria, project feasibility criteria, PPP sustainability and affordability criteria. In the Adani instance, steps 3 and 4, which require conducting due diligence and evaluation on the private party as required by law, was undertaken. 1, an evaluation committee comprising of members from the Kenya Airports Authority, State Department for Transport and National Treasury, as part of the evaluation process, undertook a preliminary due diligence and evaluation exercise in compliance with Section 41 and 42 of the Act. And this is what I called high-level evaluation. Number 2, the evaluation committee in evaluating the proposal applied the criteria specified in Section 42(3) of the Act to scrutinize the proposal. That is, public interest criteria, project feasibility criteria. I'm simply restating what I have already stated up there, sustainability criteria and affordability criteria. The committee identified 22 issues in the PIP proposal and recommended that the concerns be addressed by Adani Airport Holdings Limited at the project development phase. 22 issues. And attached herewith is the evaluation report. It's annexure number C.
Chairman, slight point of order.
Yes,
I noticed that the CS keeps on editing his document as he reads it. What is the word suitability? He reads as sustainability. I don't understand whether there's any import to that.
Yeah, maybe the chair, the word here is suitability, not sustainability. If I did that, that's just, I did not edit my written submission intentionally. My apologies. Step number 5. Chairman and members, the evaluation having concluded, the law anticipates the submission and assessment of PIP by the directorate. More specifically, the PPP directorate is required under Section 42(6) of the Act to carry out a detailed assessment and make recommendations to the committee within 5 working days after concluding the evaluation on whether the project can proceed to project development phase. The committee can approve, reject, or guide on the procurement method. Step number 6. This is now the approval of the PIP by the committee. So after receiving the assessment report from the directorate, the committee will consider the PIP to determine whether or not the project may proceed to the project development phase. In its determination, the committee shall consider the assessment report submitted by the directorate, the review and recommendations of the directorate, and finally, any benchmarking and market testing results. Chairman and members, retaining our focus on the Adani instance, please note that in line with steps 5 and 6, assessment and submission of PIP by the directorate as well as approval by the committee as required under the provisions of the law occurred. 1, the directorate conducted an assessment of the evaluation report and prepared a technical working paper for presentation to the committee. I have attached herewith the technical working paper as annexure number E. The PIP evaluation report, number 2, the PIP evaluation report was presented to the committee at its 40th extraordinary PPP committee meeting held on 13th March 2024. 3, the PPP committee considered the report at its meeting and approved that the project should progress to the project development phase in accordance with Section 43 of the Act. In addition, the private party and the Kenya Airports Authority were required to address the following at project development phase. Number 1, the documentation with respect to tax compliance should be subjected to verification by the Kenya High Commission in India. Number 2, the proposed phase 1, that is 2025 to 2029, should be compressed to a shorter period given the urgency of its components. Number 3, the proposed concession period of 30 years on a build-to-operate transfer or BOT model should be determined on the basis of a comprehensive financial assessment of the proposed project. In that regard, to facilitate this analysis, the proponent should provide, and the proponent in this case is the private party, that's Adani, should provide a financial model, detailed EPC cost estimates, detailed O&M cost estimates, and details of the financing terms. Number 4, the proposed equity IRR of 18% should be negotiated by the parties. Further, compensation for the value of asset transferred at the end of the concession term will be applied if the proponent has not realized its targeted return. Number 5, the aero and non-aeronautical charges should be subjected to relevant national and international laws, including the concession order under the Kenya Airports Authority Act, Cap 395 laws of Kenya, Air Passenger Service Charge Act, Cap 475 laws of Kenya, and negotiations with third parties with existing contracts with Kenya Airports Authority. Number 6, land acquisition or allocation should be aligned with the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport Master Plan and subject to availability of land and requisite approvals, Kenya Airports Authority Board, NLC and other relevant government agencies, noting that Kenya Airports Authority has existing leases on land with third parties and also has planned developments in line with its strategic plan. Number 7, Kenya Airports Authority should provide details of the land available for purposes of the city's side development to the proponent. In turn, the proponent should formulate a clear development proposal for the city side component as part of their feasibility study. Number 8, the proponent should, as part of their feasibility study, make proposals to Kenya Airports Authority to accommodate the project in the Jkia master plan. Number 9, the risk matrix should be reviewed, including social risks, and risks allocated appropriately. And further, a proper mitigation plan should be provided by the proponent. Number 10, all commitments must be made in line with the Kenyan laws, and any proposed amendments to the laws should be in accordance with the established lawmaking processes. Further, any protection granted to the proponent for changes in laws shall only be limited to changes that directly discriminate the proponent. Number 11, the exclusivity of concessional rights as provided in the proposal should be reviewed, ensuring that the rights, assets, and areas of operation are clearly defined in the transaction documents. Number 12, tax exemptions as proposed should be subjected to the laws of Kenya, and applications should be made on a case-by-case basis. Number 13, the proposed heads of terms for the concession agreement should be negotiated at the appropriate stage. Number 14, the project costing is indicative at this stage. More accurate cost estimates should be agreed during the feasibility phase and once project specifications have been finalized. Number 15, a transition plan to facilitate the transfer of assets, liabilities, and obligations from the grantor of the concession to the concessionaire should be developed. The transition plan should specify the timing, rationale, and processes or procedures for the transfer of assets, liabilities, and obligations from one party to the other. Number 16, the proposed fixed concession fee of USD 47 million per year should be reviewed and available component to the concession fee introduced to ensure that the government of Kenya is entitled to a share in the upside. Further, the concession fee should be set at a level to cover operating expenses and that Kenya Airports Authority is not left in a no-worse financial position. Number 7, the tariffs for end users are compounded by 3% on annual basis, which has a bearing on the competitiveness of the hub. In that regard, further assessment of the impact of the proposed tariff increments should be undertaken. Number 18, the Kenya Airports Authority should undertake extensive stakeholder engagement for this project. And finally, that the Kenya Airports Authority should ensure that they have the requisite capacity to finalize the project development phase within 6 months as provided under Section 43(2) of the PPP Act. This decision, Mr. Chairman, by the committee was communicated to the State Department for Transport via a letter, as reference there, and dated 13th March 2024, that is Annexure F. Chairman and members, the communication of the committee anticipates that, in line with the law, the following steps may apply. Now, step number 7. Now is the project development phase. After approval of the PIP proposal by the committee, the private party shall proceed to the project development stage after preparation of project development activities, which include a detailed geographical scope of the project and the technical, financial, legal, social, environmental, and economic feasibility studies. B, PPP suitability assessment or value for money assessment. C, comprehensive risk matrix. D, a preliminary PPP structure. And finally, a plan for stakeholder outreach to ensure social acceptability of the project. The private party and Kenya Airports Authority may enter into a project agreement to outline the terms which the private party will undertake the project development activities. Section 43(7), I confirm, Chair, the project agreement has not been signed or agreed on. I think I've mixed it. That was for section 43(7). I confirm, Chair, that the project agreement has not been signed or agreed on between the government and Adani Airport Holdings Limited. And then maybe let me just add there that project development is a detailed feasibility study phase by the proponent. Step number 8 is evaluation and submission of documents from the project development. Mr. Chairman, evaluation of the documents from project development phase is undertaken by the contracting authority and the directorate in accordance with the criteria as set out in section 42 of the PPP Act, Cap 430, and submitted to the directorate for assessment. This was done by what we would call the project implementation team. The evaluation report is then forwarded to the National Treasury by the Kenya Airports Authority through their parent ministry for consideration and approval by the PPP committee. Mr. Chairman, the step number 9, assessment and approval of documents from project development phase. I want the committee to ignore the first paragraph there, which starts with documents from this phase, because actually it should have been tied. This was just explaining the number of days it would take for the previous process to conclude. So it doesn't add any more value. And because it was too late for me to amend this, it has come here, Mr. Chairman. My apologies. So that paragraph is not adding any value. I move to the next paragraph that the committee...
maybe for the record, the paragraph that is below step 9.
Yes.
Start with document and ends...
From this phase, it ends with this phase.
So you're deleting that?
It's actually three lines. The last line is short.
Okay, proceed.
So the committee may, within 14 days on the recommendation of the contracting authority and any independent reviews or advice that the committee may solicit, determine that, and that is section 11, the project meets the requisite criteria and grant approval for procurement, B, the project does not meet the requisite criteria and guide on alternative methods for implementation. Or C, the project does not meet any of the relevant criteria and should be abandoned. Chairman and members, I have outlined to you one of the lawful steps as set out in the Act. The other lawful step that may follow at this project development stage is provided under Section 43, 6 and 7 of the Act. Excuse me. In respect to the Adani instance, in line with the law as it relates to the project development phase. Now, number one, Kenya Airports Authority and Adani Airport Holdings Limited did not enter into a project development agreement as provided in Section 43, 6 of the Act.